Hello world, it's your boy Jay Wil.
And Hollywood Kas.
And we are back once again on Don't Take It Personal. And I think I got to start switching up when we say we have a special guest, man.
Because it becomes...
It becomes a little different.
And it's really levels to this shit.
Yeah, there is, man. Because today's guest is man... We got a legendary guest here today with us.
Bro, his name is legendary.
Yeah.
It sounds like an unlockable Street Fighter character. When you say the whole shit, yeah.
Man, today's guest is one of the most accomplished, talented, and storied producers in hip-hop today. Someone who I personally have been a fan of for some time. I'm actually going to bring some shit up. I don't think he is probably going to throw him off. I don't know. We're going, I'm good for my throw-offs, man. So, but
fake ass Nardwuar.
Yeah, hey, relax. But the guest we had today has produced classics for Kanye West, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Drake, Eminem, Lupe Fiasco, Lodge. And that's what I'm saying. Shit, man, this is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Bruh. We got the one and only Symbolyc One in the building. I think that deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, hit that button.
Now, this is reserved for the special guests, the soundboards.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us today, man.
Man, I appreciate y'all having me.
We do what we always usually do, which is basically have an entire show before we have the show. This is like I was telling him beforehand. This is usually how our conversations go. We have a full convo before we even start with the mics. It's crazy
shit up.
Some good topics too.
Man. No,
Interesting.
We do our thing, man. So thank you for joining us today.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here, man.
You want to know the how I first came across S1, and it wasn't even, most people would probably say Power.
Mm-hmm. That was
Kanye West.
Power.
For me, I'm actually a really big Strange Fruit Project fan.
Oh, that's dope, man.
I remember, my favorite era in hip hop is the Bad Boy Shiny Suit era. Don't kill me, people.
Okay. No, I'm with you.
No, not you.
Oh,
But we got a lot of hardcore hip hop fans that every time I say that I'm a bad boy, nigga, they look at me sideways. But it's funny because my second favorite era of hip hop is the late 90s, early 2000s, backpack, underground, conscious rap era. You know what I'm saying?
That's me all day.
Yeah, so I remember I was a kid, and I was just, because I would put Pandora on when I was a kid because I would want to find new shit. So I had it on the Talib Kweli radio. And randomly, You by Strange Fruit Project comes on. I'm like, who are these guys? It was so dope to me, and I actually went back and listened to all y'all's projects, and I became a fan from that day.
Super dope.
And so when I initially found out that You produced Power by Kanye West, it just blew my mind.
Man, it blew mine too.
I think that shit, when everybody heard Power the first time, we had to hit that hoe back. It was like, bro, what the heck? It actually sounds like your name, but the Symbolic One was coming out the sky. That shit felt crazy.
So you've accomplished so much so far. We're gonna get in. We're gonna get through it, man. But I gotta ask. With your new memoir, Pray, Focus, Plan, Execute.
In that order.
Yeah, for sure. You've done so much, but I feel like you have a lot left to do. You're still pretty young, and you got a lot of time left. Quincy Jones is what?
Man,
almost 90.
650.
Huh?
He 650. Quincy been around for a minute.
Yeah. and he's just now starting to tell a story. So why now did you feel like it was a good time to write a book about your experiences?
Man, I felt it was the perfect time because for some reason I wanted to kind of not just highlight the things that I've done, but also just be a vessel into impacting people.
Right.
And I was like, what better way to do it than to tell my story?
Right.
So that was really the main purpose for the book, is just to be able to encourage people, motivate, and, just impact people through my story. And I felt like a lot of people knew of a lot of the songs that I've been able to create and do, but they didn't know the process that it took me to get to this point. So I wanted to highlight that process and show people that, man, failures are part of the journey, and being insecure and fears and doubts and all these things are part of the journey to get to those wins.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to touch on a few of the things in the book because I'm not gonna lie, man. I was reading and I was like, damn, this is crazy. Like I had no idea. So it was just really interesting when I read it. So after reading it, I appreciated the fact that you did it. But I remember just thinking like, there's so much left he has to do. I'm surprised he's doing this now. Now I named all the people you work with before. It's a long list, and there's so many people I didn't even mention, like Madonna and all that. Like, he's just so many people. One thing reading your book, I noticed a lot of the work you did with these people were in person. Yes. Which was odd because awesome. We're in the digital age now, so most music is made through email. Are all of your not obviously not all, but are majority of your work with these other artists in person?
A lot of them were. I was in the room with these individuals, but of course, being in the age that we are in now, some of it was email. Yeah.
What about? I know Kanye and Jay, Beyonce were in person.
Those were in person.
What about like Drake and Eminem?
Drake, no. Eminem, no.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of it might be even split. Between
half
who
and
I
half.
was, probably like half and half. But
okay.
But as time is progressing and we in the digital age and people's schedules are crazy, like email is just sometimes the best thing.
Yeah.
Creatively being in the room is the best thing, though.
Yeah.
Because you can exchange real live energy.
Energy is everything.
And we hear a lot of crazy stories about the My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy sessions.
Yeah,
so
those sessions were amazing, man.
It's got to be crazy to just be a part of that. Like,
oh, man.
Because we, especially when you fans of music, and we super fans, so you watch every documentary you can get your hands on.
Yeah,
you
for
try
sure.
to find,
I'm big on documentaries.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
we're
you want to know the
crazy
process, every in and out of the process, because we damn near got to live vicariously through these. For you to actually be in the room, though, that's got to be different.
It felt crazy, man, because, going into working on that album, this was, just think, from that moment, every year prior to that was just me being influenced by a Kanye, and Jay-Z, and just and listening. I remember first buying College Dropout and listening to it. It's like, yo, what is he doing? How did he create this? What did he, come up with this idea? What was going on in his head? So to be in that moment, it was just like reflecting back of like, yo, how did I end up in this room? Because like I say, prior to that, I could always see myself working with these individuals, but to actually be there was just a whole nother experience.
One of the funniest things I read was about how Kanye would make y'all play basketball every day. You were he was talking about in the book, he talked about how out of shape he was. So they would literally play basketball every day, and he would just Did you eventually get better? Did your conditioning get better?
Over time, it got better, man. It was just a matter of just doing it every day. But every day I was just hoping that more than 3 or 4 people would come through the door. because the thing is, the thing with Kanye is it was always, no matter how many people, whether we're playing 2-on-2 or 5-on-5, we're gonna run full court.
God, so y'all playing
because
NBA
it was a
regulation.
thing.
Do you think a part of that is do you think, could it be just him enjoying the game, or could it be a building exercise, you think?
It was both. It was him working on the condition, on the physical aspect of his life and everybody around him, but it was also a self-discipline thing. And I think that's where, just being there, working on that album, I got to see a whole new level of self-discipline.
That's wild.
And that's, because every day was the same routine. And no matter who was flying out there and working on the project, we were all a part of this routine every day.
Yeah,
and that was working
dope.
on, being social, but at the same time, it's like, okay, we're going to go to the gym and we're going to play basketball for conditioning. We're going to go to the studio and we're going to lock in for 12 hours, 14 hours, and just be able to focus. And at that time, it was no social media.
Right.
Our phones couldn't be, we couldn't do any of that. So it was this focus that was unmatched.
Yeah.
Because there were no distractions in the studio. It was just let's make this the best project that we can actually make it.
Go ahead.
Is it any level of intimidation in being in a room with that many people are talented?
Absolutely. And I wanted to make sure in the book that I got that point across, that it was very intimidating, you know, having Kanye in a room, and then you got RZA, you got Swiss Beats in another room, and we all working on the same song, you know. But the thing is that I love about Kanye is like, it's not about who's delivering the idea, it's about the actual idea. So no matter who it came from, the best idea was gonna make the song.
Now I have this conversation. We have this conversation a lot about how I think the reason why music is so disposable now is because we don't have enough of that.
I agree.
Enough collaboration, enough people who are more focused on production. Because, you know, we know a lot of labels, to cut costs, they won't really pay some of the great producers to do what they do, because, I mean, like, Timbaland charges like $500,000 for a beat, you know, per beat. And so a label's not going to pay that whenever you got people on YouTube that find beats for $20.
Yeah, that changed the whole game when that happened. And the thing is too, is like, there's so many people able to produce now, because at the time when I first came in, you had to have a piece of hardware. You had to have an MPC or SP1200. But now you can download FL Studio on your computer or Reason or whatever for $100. You know, so there's more people producing as well.
When you look at stuff like that, with the struggle you went through, the money you had to spend to get the equipment you got, the struggles you went through to work on this, because I'm telling, okay, people, you got to read this book. I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even saying it because you're here. I really enjoyed it. But the money you had to spend to get the equipment, and when you look at how things are now, do you ever get a little irritated, like, you little motherfuckers didn't? Y'all don't know what it was like.
No, I don't. I just credit that to you know, what I was able to learn during those periods. You know, starting. I believe that starting out with hardware for me was great, because now it makes software easier. Because, you know, software is basically just a virtual form of that hardware. You know, so, and then another thing too, back when I started in using those pieces of hardware, there were so many limitations, but it was in those limitations where the creativity came. You know, because you had to find ways to make things work, or to pull things out. And I think now, with things being so limited, that can actually kind of damper your creativity, because you don't have room to find ways to do things, because they just give it to you.
Yeah, I could see that. That's kind of like when I forgot who that was saying, like, if you have an infinite budget, it's harder to think up what to create.
Absolutely. No, that's actually really true.
You need a certain level of restrictions. And I know you started off. Didn't you start off with like a mixer? You didn't. That was like your first.
Yeah,
piece.
that was my first thing. My pops bought me a mixer, and the reason why I got this, it was just a DJ mixer, but the reason why I wanted to this samples. Mixer is because it had a sampler on it. And it was basically just a 6-second sampler, and that was one of the things too. Like, it was just 6 samples, so the way I had to get the most out of that sampling time is I had to speed the records up as fast as I could, sample it, and then once it was in the sampler, I could pitch it all the way down. That's crazy. So that made me that allowed me to use more sample time just by speeding the record up and then slowing it down and later.
That's some of that restriction we talking about.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's interesting. When I look at when you say who your main influences are, people like you know, Pete Rock, which you remind me a lot of Pete Rock. Actually,
Pete Rock is that dude.
He like, your production reminds me a lot of Pete Rock. But you know, Jay Dilla, Dre. DJ Premier, Quincy Jones. What was it? I mean, obviously Quincy Jones, we know why this is, but what is it about those other guys that really spoke to you? Because if I was to tell you my favorite producers, you would get Jay Dilla in there and Pete Rock in there for sure. But I'm like really big into like Trackmasters and the Hitmen, and so
it makes sense for what era you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, and DJ Quick. I love DJ Quick as producer.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
So what is it about those guys that spoke to you directly?
It was just a thing of when I heard their music, it made me feel a certain way.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what impacted me to be able to like research and like, yo, I got to figure out what are they doing. And I remember just anything that they produced, I was always up on it. And I remember just always having headphones on and listening to it and just trying to just kind of decipher everything and pick apart everything that they were doing. And that was like my training and my learning, is being able to listen to these beats that they were doing or songs that they was doing and be able to pick it apart and figure out what they were doing and try to imitate it.
Yeah.
I think my Pete Rock moment when I realized Pete Rock was crazy was the Mecca album.
Oh man,
bro, the Mecca album was insane. Insane.
I think for me it was that House of Pain Jump Around remix he did.
Oh yeah,
that's when I was like, oh
Crazy.
shit, because I don't even listen to the original. Like I've like turned that shit off.
Man, and I ain't gonna even lie to you, that shit. I love the original too.
I love it too, but like when I heard the P Rock remix, I literally don't listen to the original anymore.
P Rock is that dude though. That's one of the first. I would get those J Arms instrumental CDs.
Yeah,
and P Rock and Alchemist were the first two that I got.
Yeah,
that's crazy. What was it like for Jay Dilla to tell you that he liked your production?
Oh man, well he didn't tell me personally. He sent the message through my manager who was out in LA. But man, that meant everything because
that
like I say, he was, oh man, because he was definitely like one of the biggest influences on me as a producer. You know, so to get that and hear that from him, that was like mind blowing. And that made me realize that I have a thing or I speak about planting seeds a lot in the book. Yeah. And that was one of those things of like putting myself out there and putting my work out there, and just wherever it ends up, that's where it's supposed to end up. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of confirmation of my sound and my work ending up in his ears. Yeah, you know, that's without dope. Me knowing it, and that was just confirmation for me that just works, and that's how it is.
I do like that philosophy a lot. How you talk about like that. I think it's like 13 years of just planting seeds. Yeah, and then they start.
And you see, and throughout the book, you see all the things that he said before that he wanted to accomplish or that he wanted to get done happen in its own way. Like I really enjoyed. For people who don't know, you're not just a producer; you do rap as well. Yeah. So Strange True Project had you rapping it also. To rap. Yeah, used to, yes. But even with the Strange True Project and Third Eye Militia, which was a crew you had, there was a lot of rapping you did. And really, what got him into production was they didn't have money for beats, so he just learned, which is wild for me because I was the worst beat maker in the world for like 2 days. I tried it and I realized this. I mean, I'm really good at figuring what I'm not good at, and I learned very quickly this ain't it. So what was it like? How do you just randomly decide? You know what? I'm gonna start making beats, and then it becomes your entire life.
Yeah, it was just a matter of us not having beats, original music of our own. You know, when we were back in that era, we were just rapping on instrumentals and break beats. You know, so it just kind of hit me one day of like, man, how are people making their own original music? So I just kind of jumped in and dived down that rabbit hole of trying to figure things out, what people were using, you know, sounds, what equipment and all these things, and that's what led me into like the art of production and trying to produce for me and my group.
And y'all had your thing going on, man. They got an unsigned hype of The Source.
Yeah, that was
like major.
That's a big moment. That's like in the class of Notorious B.I.G. and Common and
Common.
That's like how for you. I mean I know how I felt. It had to have been crazy, but just moving forward, like that had to be confirmation that y'all were on the right track.
Absolutely,
right?
Man, and that's exactly what that was. That was just confirmation that we were on the right path. Yeah, you know, because we were big fans of the Unsigned Hype, Source magazine, and we would literally buy the Source magazine just to see who was in the Unsigned Hype every month. You know, so for us to be in there, that was definitely a moment for us, and it made us realize that we were on the right path, and we just needed to stick on the and align ourselves with this, with our dream, and align ourselves with our purpose, and that was our purpose.
And what I love the most about the story is, because I always tell people when people ask me or Kaz like how we do certain things, I'm always just say, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't hurt to at least put it out there. If they say no, they just said no.
Absolutely.
So y'all literally everything that I've seen you guys accomplish, or at least like the Teen Summit story where you guys just applied for your crew and your other group, and then you got the audition. Yeah, you just applied. Like
it's just taking action, man. Like one thing I say is like nothing happens unless we do, or nothing happens on its own. Yeah, and every accomplishment or success that we have is derived from an action that we made at some point in our lives. Yeah, like things don't just happen on its own, or just don't. There's no coincidence that things just magically happen. You know, so that was another one of those moments of us taking action and shooting our shot. You know, you can't never expect to score if you don't shoot your shot.
No, for sure.
But you can guarantee that you won't score if you
don't do it at all.
That's that old nigga saying, you know, a closed mouth don't get fed. When they say that, you like, man, nigga, what you talking about? But that's true, though. It's just literally sometimes the ask. I learned that in sales, too. You know, they used to always say that is that the worst salesman, the thing that they lack is the ability to just ask the person to buy the item. Like, they'll talk to them, talk about the item, but that fear of rejection stops a lot of people from even asking for the sale. That's so dope.
Nah, it's just interesting to see that. Now, let me ask you this: what happened to the Strange Fruit? Why'd you guys stop with Strange Fruit Project? I mean, by the time I know your first 2 albums, they were kind of just stepping stones. But when you get to the Healing, like you had Lil Brother on there, Ninth Wonder produced on there, Erykah Badu's on there. So obviously y'all going in the right direction.
Yeah,
what happened?
So we actually had 2 albums after that.
Yeah.
So we kept recording, but I think at our last album point, that was kind of when things started to just change, like just music wise, industry wise, everything started to evolve. So, we kind of lost our love for it a little bit. But we continued to record. We just never put the music out that we was recording. You know? So that was just around that time where we was just trying to figure things out.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy because hip hop moves in these waves where like the eras literally will change on your ass.
Yeah.
And you can see it, you can feel it.
For sure.
Definitely.
You can feel it changing, And that was one of those moments.
That's crazy.
What do you think your career would be if you guys actually took off with that?
Ooh. That's a great question. I mean, I credit like even my production career to those moments of Strange Fruit Project, because those were the moments where I was really able to create a sound for not only create a sound for our group, but also know what it takes to sculpt the project from start to finish. Because I was doing I was seeing the whole project through. I was executive producing it. So I was making the beats. Like I would record us. When they come to the house, we would record. I would mix our songs. We would collectively put the songs together in the right order. I was involved in, making sure that the project was mastered correctly, and even the first album, like pressing our own CDs up. And, so I credit that to a lot of training and just knowing how to put projects together.
Yeah.
And so I value that so much, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to stretch out my production career as long without having that knowledge and being able to have that training behind me.
Because it literally sounds like you were doing every aspect of it, from pre to post production.
Every aspect, and I was learning so much during the time.
That's dope.
And my favorite hip hop album of all time is B by Common.
Oh man,
this shit's perfect.
I love the idea of having one singular thought throughout a project, and that's what I feel like that project had.
Yeah, just a lot of just being cohesive
for sure.
Who's
somebody, if you could choose to do a full project with, like just sit down, you guys hash it out completely, you do all the work for it, who would that person be? Because I know you almost did one with our guy Lupe Fiasco.
Man, I need
y'all was gonna do an album called Black Vietnam. Man,
and we got to still do that.
That's the last title.
I was literally thinking about that a couple weeks ago, and I know it's gonna happen at some point. It's just we just gotta wait till everything aligns for it. And just the timing is everything,
we say all the time Lupe had the potential to be the greatest MC of all time.
Man, Lupe is so dope, bro.
He's like incredible.
I wish he would have had that like that one producer that I know he worked with Soundtrack a lot and shit.
I love Soundtrack too.
Soundtrack was hard.
I used to always wish, like I remember around the time of graduation, because when I went to Glow in the Dark tour, he was the opening guy, and I used to be sitting there thinking like, damn, I wish him and Kanye would do just a full project together. Yeah. Because it was certain
I'm surprised that never happened, too.
Well, Kanye became the biggest star in the world. He couldn't, really lock in like that,
Man, but when he did, we got B.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why when I heard Mos Def sign the Good Music, I was like, oh, shit.
Bro, I ain't gonna lie. I'm the biggest Mos Def fan off one album.
Man, Mos Def is crazy.
I am off one album. Like, Black on Both Sides is my favorite hip-hop album of all time.
That was
one album
bro.
is why I'm always, because niggas be like, what else you got? And I kind of be like, New Danger cool, but like this shit was.
You know what's crazy is I had a song that was supposed to be on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and it was Kanye featuring Mos Def.
Really?
And it was called Sweat on My Face.
Man.
And man, bro, I wish that mug would have. Yo,
but who's the artist that you would want to lock in with, like, just completely?
That's a great question. Wow. I would say Black Thought. Yeah, I would say Black
That'd
Thought.
be interesting.
I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you why I fuck with that. Because I've always wanted to hear Thought over, like, you know, like, I know he had his record, but I wasn't just like a huge fan of the production.
Yeah.
And like, I think that would be crazy. Because Thought really don't get I feel like he don't get the love he should get.
Oh man, he's amazing, man.
I think it's because, and I'm a Roots fan, so I don't want any backlash for this, but I think when you listen to the Roots albums or just some of the work that they've done, it feels more so like it's, I mean, and they tell you this when they record, it's like a jam session. Mm-hmm. It's mostly like a jam session. And so it's like you hear like some of the dopest bars ever from him, but we don't know who he is.
Yeah, I can agree.
We don't really know who Black Thought is. We don't really know, you know, much about what he thinks about certain things. It's just dope.
And Black Thought got a crazy story.
He does.
That's what's insane. Like, he got a crazy story.
And I think it's because when you think of the greatest MCs of all time, the ones we name, we know their story.
Yeah.
Through their music, we know their story.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
So I think that's what it is. But Black Thought that'd be a dope one, man. Who's somebody? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, because every time you hear him over certain styles of production, that nigga goes off.
And
he was on
like,
Rock Marciano shit and went off.
And when he freestyles, like he just,
he's the best.
I told you,
he's a beast.
I told you the moment that made me like, I mean, I've always been a Roots fan and I've always been a Black Thought fan, but the moment that threw me off was I was already on before that. There was I remember Wale was doing a guest spot. He was performing Pretty Girls Live somewhere, and Black Thought happened to be there. And of course, Gucci Mane was in prison at the time, so he couldn't do his guest verse. And Black Thought just randomly walked on stage and freestyled a verse and then walked off.
Wow.
I was sick, like, what the fuck?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that nigga sick.
I was like, wait a minute. This was like not planned whatsoever. He walked on stage, freestyled a verse to Pretty Girls, and just walked off the stage. I was like,
yeah, he's amazing, man. He's always been like one of my top MCs.
No, he's definitely up there. I just feel like that's partly why he doesn't get his prizes, because people don't really know who he is.
Yeah, if he had an album full of like a more traditional production, because I think the band element definitely gives it a particular feel.
Yeah.
If he had more traditional production and we really got to see Black Thought as just Black Thought, I think it's different. And I think he'd probably be a step closer to people really recognizing how dope that nigga is.
No, for sure. Who's somebody you haven't worked with that you would want to work with?
Probably Rihanna.
Ooh, my man!
Yeah.
Till I said hi. That's my baby. You know. Then we have, we have.
If he ever meets her, like, I'm never gonna see him again. He's gonna be mesmerized for the rest of his life.
Over. I'm giving her my whole Pepsi check. It's $450, but goddamn, I hope she takes it.
Say my whole
check. I'm just going. She gonna be like, "Who are you?" That's it.
Oh, Rihanna be a good one. Who else are you thinking?
Crazy.
Who else? Let's see. Rihanna. I would say.
I'm trying to think. Who in hip hop have you not worked with?
I was just gonna. That's the hard part. He like, shit. I've worked with everybody great. When you work with everybody great, who do you want to work with?
That's why he's having a hard time right now.
He got to dig in the goddamn Red Hot Chili Peppers. Okay.
Dang. Who? Dang, I don't even know, man. Man, I'd have to look. Like, I can't pull.
That's funny.
The Rihanna one is sick, though.
No, that would be dope.
Here's the question: is Rihanna ever gonna make music again? Because she's so fucking.
She's making way too much money not on music.
Yeah.
Dude,
I'm sure she will.
I want her to.
She was reported like what 600 net worth of 600 million last year. Like,
that's crazy.
Why is she secretly finna overtake? Because Victoria's Secret, since they had their little faux pas and she started doing the Fenty shit right at the same time, she gonna take that shit out.
Oh,
that
hell
shit's
yeah.
gonna be on CBS before it's all said and done.
Nah,
she'll
real
take
shit.
their place. I know it's coming.
I feel it too, man. See, S1 still looking. He really got to think about this one.
He like, shit, I haven't worked with. It's gonna have to be an obscure name.
Dang,
It's gonna be somebody.
Well, have you worked with Nas?
I haven't. That's a great one right there. Nas and Wayne.
I don't know about Wayne currently, but
leave him alone, man.
I try. Like, look, you know me.
Just as a bucket list thing, man. Wayne,
I have a hard time not speaking my mind. You know that.
But you know what though? I get it because when he say the bucket list, that's kind of like me. I said I would still give Shaka Khan a D based off a legacy. It's the same thing. You know, it's the bucket list. You got to do it.
Cat.
It's the same thing. I'm drawing a parallel. I'm trying to get us to...
It's not the same thing, my nigga.
I mean, you're right. I just wanted to throw that out there. Shaka, if you're listening.
Say you right.
No, but
definitely Nas. Definitely Nas.
Nah, I think you and Nas would actually be really good. Actually,
that would be fire.
Do you pay much attention? I mean, being here that you're based in the DFW, do you pay much attention to Dallas-based hip hop artists?
Absolutely.
Who are some of the ones that you kind of like and would want to work with?
Well, I've been working with the ones I've been wanting to work with. Definitely Bobby Sessions is doing his thing right now. I actually have an artist that kind of like my special project. His name is Derek Scott, and he's amazing. And he's like one of the artists that every time I'm working on stuff with him, like I'm excited. Yeah. You know, and that's what I love. I like being excited about. I want to be excited about things that I work on, and he's definitely one of those artists that is like, yeah, he's next level.
That mean he getting some heat.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all I heard when he said, "I'd be excited." Oh, Derek getting some heat.
Yeah, I liked what you did with Sarah Jaffe too. The dividends, man. That was really dope. That was really Sarah. That was really interesting to me. I really enjoyed just because it's it's interesting whenever you see producers really try to break out of what they're used to, what people know them for. Yeah. And so that was interesting for me to hear that project because I wasn't expecting it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's one of the things too. Like I get bored creatively. So it's easy to do what I'm normally known for doing. Yeah. So sometimes I have to kind of step outside of that to be able to draw new and fresh inspirations. So I love working with like a Sarah Jaffe and other artists that you wouldn't normally put me with. Yeah. Just to see what would come out of just by seeing what would come out of just putting us together. Yeah.
I think a lot of producers get re-inspired by that.
Absolutely.
Like, you remember that point where Timbaland was like done with hip hop? Yeah. And then he started working with Nelly Furtado and doing all that.
And Justin Timberlake.
And now this nigga is back in hip hop and like hella inspired.
Like, I think sometimes you have to step away from something just to gain new perspective and new inspirations and then come back to it.
That. Yep. I definitely agree with that. Now, I read in the book you said that you really didn't get into listening to hip hop till like around high school. Mm-hmm. What were some of the things you were listening to prior to that?
Just really what was on the radio. I wasn't really deep into it, like researching. Once I started listening, it was like, oh man, let me just go down this this wormhole of trying to figure out who. But prior to that, it was just just the typical stuff that you was hearing on the radio.
What's that first thing that sent you down the path? Like that record where it's like, oh no, I fuck with this. Like,
well, my first piece of vinyl that I ever bought was Fat Boys.
Man, I remember the Fat Boys.
Human Beatbox. So yeah, Fat Boys, and then it was what was after that? Dang, I can't even remember what was after that. But yeah, so Fat Boys kind of opened me up to like, yo, this is fresh.
I ain't gonna lie, that's a wild opening too. Yeah, the Fat Boys.
Yeah,
that's the first time I've ever heard that one.
But yeah, and then as I started to dive deeper, it was, getting more into like a lot of the West Coast stuff like Bums and Far Side, and
he started with Bums. He went dug deep on that one.
I was listening to everything because like I was saying in the book, like my cousin Kevin, he was listening to everything, so I was just getting tapes from him and just listening to new things, and he'd be like, "Yo, check this out," or "Check this out."
And that's what I loved about that.
Wu-Tang and.
Don't we all get this shit from our cousins?
Yeah, I'm about to say, because that's literally. I remember reading that and I was like, man, that's my story. Literally, my cousin crazy. From the West Coast. Moved in with me when I was about 9 or 10 years old, and he would like literally sneak me CDs when my mom wasn't looking, because my dad's a preacher. So
okay. My dad is too.
My parents did not want me to listen. So like he would be like, look, when your mom ain't looking, here, take this Snoop Dogg or this 3 6 Mafia or this Sugar Free or this DJ Quick, and like don't tell nobody. Like you know what I'm saying? And so it was interesting reading it, because that's a lot of people's story, mine including that.
Hell yeah.
We just had somebody there. I think people who had that kind of upbringing within hip hop music really got the best kind of outlook on it, because it's kind of like we had Genius before Genius was a thing. We had somebody there coaching the studio.
You kind of get
exactly
a tour. Yeah, you get a tour. My cousin Ken, I remember that nigga would ridicule my music taste, because I got to the point where like literally all I listened to was 3 6. So it's like 3 6 is I listen to Bone, I listen to Mad
Bone.
Project Pat, and that nigga would be like, yeah, that shit cute, but like you gotta listen to this though. And that nigga kept giving me Reasonable Doubt, and I'm like, bruh, how you listen to this? Because it's not, my ear is not equipped for this shit. And one day after like just getting forced to listen to this shit 1,000 times, I was like, this shit kind of tight. Like, it was over from there. Like it just started, and I started buying shit on my own that was actually from that cloud. Because I always loved hip hop music. My mom was a hip hop head, but once I got on my own, I started listening to literally. I needed the most ignorant shit. Like, and that nigga put me back on the path. He was like, "Hey, it's cool to have that, but you gotta have this." And he added that balance, and it was over.
Yeah, and I think that balance is important too.
For sure.
That was one of the things too. Like I started listening to everything. First, it was more like just New York hip hop, but then it was like listening to other things, your UGK and Ghetto Boys, and then going to the West Coast and listening to West Coast hip hop and Snoop, and and I think listening to everything that also played a part in just my range as a producer.
Yeah,
facts.
That definitely played a part in that.
What kind of influence do you feel like you left on your son? Because one of your sons is a producer as well. And I'm not gonna lie, and again, I'm not just saying this because you here.
Yeah,
that record that came out a few years ago, "Drop Me Down."
Oh yeah,
I love that song.
Yeah, that was a joint. I forgot about that too.
I love that song. So what kind of influence do you feel like you were putting on him to where he felt he wanted to follow in your footsteps?
Well, shout out to my son Von. I never wanted to force anything on Von or any of my boys. It was just a mere fact that Von was always around. When I was in the studio, he'd be in the studio, so he just kind of picked it up at an early age. So around 8 years old, 9 years old, that's when he would always ask me, could he make a beat? So I wound up putting a Reason program on his computer and just giving it to him and be like, hey, figure it out. And he would every day he got home from school, he would just be in there working, trying to figure things out. Whenever he had any questions, I was open for that, but I just wanted him to kind of do his own thing. And he developed that skill and really just did what he did with it.
Yeah.
Crazy. I know it's got to be crazy to see your son like in that same space, even though you don't put it on him.
So
I know it's like,
see.
damn.
It's so crazy to see because he started so early, and I look at myself in my journey of starting late. Because I was like starting college or a little bit into college when I first started actually diving into production. But to look at him at 8 years old, starting at 9, and then getting his first placement at 12. And so I'm like, he has a big jump on where I was. Yeah. And then even just structure wise and business wise, like he has, because we're able to teach him as well and give him information. Me going into it, like I had nobody to show me. I didn't have any family members in the industry, so I was just figuring it out as I go. So he's light years ahead now of where I was at that moment.
That's dope. That's dope.
Now, when I look at some of the projects you were most hands on, I mean, you told us about your experiences working with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. What was it like on Watch the Throne, though, man? I mean, you explain it in the book for the people who don't have the book yet. Like, give us a little tidbit of what that was like, because that led to you working with Beyonce too.
Those were some amazing sessions. After My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Kanye hits me up and is like, "Yo," and he had this thing about just randomly hitting you up and like, "Yo, we're gonna fly out to London tomorrow. Can you come out?"
Sounds about right.
So our first trip was to London. I flew out there with him and Jay and the rest of the team, and we stayed out there for a week, and we started the Watch the Throne album. A lot of greats out there, from Ryan Leslie, No ID,
my boy,
Mike Dean, of course. So we were just locked in the studio, and we would have these amazing sessions every day. We would eat dinner. Chefs would cook us dinner every day, so we had these great conversations, talking every day after during these sessions, and it was just a really great experience. And of course, because Jay-Z was there, Beyonce was there.
Yeah, of course.
So that's when I was able to, really kind of build a rapport with her. But it wasn't until our next trip, which was Australia. We went to Australia to work on the Watch the Throne.
That's right. I do remember that. Russell Crowe was in the fucking building.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So we went out there for a week, and because Jay was there, Beyonce was there again, and that's when I really got to build a solid working relationship with her, because she was working on her album while we were out there as well.
Which that's my favorite Beyonce album, actually.
The 4 album, 4 was dope, man.
4 was dope.
And built a relationship with her, and by the end of that trip, she was like, "Yo, I want you to be a part of this album. Can you mind flying out to New York at the top of the year to help me with my 4 album?" So I wound up going out there top of the year and working on an album with her.
It's insane that these crazy moments are parlaying into crazier moments.
Yeah.
Like, they just keep, it's like a snowball.
Definitely was a snowball effect, man. It was like basically one situation leading to the next situation was leading to the next.
And how is it seeing your work? Like, because like a lot of these albums come with like crazy tours. And I remember seeing like the shit that Ev Devlin did with the fucking cubes and shit. I know it's got to be insane to hear a record that you were a part of in that environment.
Oh, man, bro. When I first heard Power performed
at the BET Awards.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard it, actually, or first time of him performing it, which was amazing, because it was like, I remember, and I talk about it in the book as well, like seeing the commercial, like Kanye is going to be performing on BET Awards, his new single. And it was one of those things like we talked about earlier, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I want to go, but so I sent him an email. I was like, yo, want to see if you had an extra ticket he was like, yo, you gotta be there. I remember he said, I remember seeing Jay-Z perform Izzo for the first time, and it meant everything to me.
Yeah.
So you gotta see me perform this record.
That's crazy.
So I wind up going out to the BET Awards and seeing him perform that. And I remember just sitting there and just seeing him perform, and it was like, wow, like
that has to be insane.
Idea that I created in my little small studio room is now. He's performing this song now on the BET stage.
And that's a massive ass, like just the sound of that record, to hear that in a big arena or something, like that's insane.
It has to be one of the most, that has to be so crazy to produce a song, because that was the first single. And it was probably, it has to be one of Kanye's most well-known records too. I still hear Power Out all the time.
Yeah, I think it was a timing of that record, because prior to that, he was going through the situation with the Taylor Swift situation, and people was kind of writing them off. And so he would always tell me, like, this record is super important to me, because this is like my re-breakthrough moment.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be real with you, I didn't like 808s and Heartbreaks at first. It grew on me. Like, and I still don't like Love Lockdown. So I remember,
I love that record
too.
I'm in the minority there. I know it, but I remember it was kind of similar to the BET Awards, where they was like Kanye West is closing the MTV VMAs with his new record from his new album 808s and Heartbreaks, Love Lockdown. And so I'm waiting around the whole time to see it, and then I'm listening to it, and I'm like, yo, are they playing the wrong track? Because I was like, this can't be it. And then he started singing this shit, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be a Kanye fan anymore. Like, I genuinely hated that song.
It's funny, though, because when I first saw it, all minds was blown. I was actually, me and my partner, we called each other Dorian. And I'll never forget, we was like, this nigga done changed his whole aesthetic. He had the gray suit, the blinking heart shit.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. He did, like, because it always comes that point where an artist has to, like,
reinvent.
Yeah, it's that shit The Weeknd does so well. I'm going to change my aesthetic to match the music. So now it's almost like you're dealing with a familiar face, but a totally different person at the same time. And I remember seeing that, I was like, damn, this this finna be crazy. But I do remember I can't even lie, I remember the first time I listened to the album all the way through. I remember it was only like maybe 3 records I liked. And then one by one, that grew on me.
That's how it was with me too. Cause
I think probably I'd say RoboCop probably the only one that never grew on me.
I like RoboCop. Paranoid is probably my favorite.
Paranoid.
I love the album now.
It's incredible.
At first, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
I think it's going into it just the expectations.
That's what it is.
That's really what it is.
That's what it is for sure. Nah, it's interesting. Now, I read in the book. I read that you guys kind of had like a little bit of a discrepancy whenever you were on his under Good Music as a producer. Can you kind of explain how that works with people? Let's say there's producers who are listening right now who want to get into the business, like, and they don't fully understand how publishing works or splits work or just overall getting paid on time. Because, you know, that was the thing that broke up Manny Fresh and Cash Money was like he produced all their music and never really got properly paid for it. So as to all the upcoming producers, what are some of the aspects of the business you can tell them that they should know?
Well, the first thing I would just say, like, always have an attorney. When you're dealing with contracts, always have an attorney.
Right.
Because there's certain terms, there's certain lingo that you're not going to understand going into that situation. So that's the first thing, is just always have an attorney. The second thing is always one thing that I was able to do is the attorney that I had, I'm the type of person that asks questions because I want to know. I want to be able to learn. You know, so I had a lot of coaching. It was like, okay, what does this mean? And he would sit me down and be like, okay, this clause, never have this clause in a contract, or do away with this, or this is cool, but you should, you know, we should shoot for this. You know, so always just having that information is so important. Just knowing, you know. So I would just say just always go into the situation having an attorney so that you can have the proper representation and the get the best deal for you. Yeah. You know, because no contract is going to be for an artist or a producer's best interest. It's for the company.
Yeah, right, for sure.
You know.
For sure.
You know what's interesting? I once had a dude tell me that contracts are structured in a way where they'll be 60 pages long and in 59 pages you're getting everything you want. And on the last page it amended everything they just gave you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of that.
So it's tricky in that way.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article that came out on XXL years ago. It was about they basically chronicled 5 producer stories that produced on 50 Cent's last album. Okay. And it talked about how for 5 years they had no idea that their music was going to be put on the album, and they couldn't sell the beats anywhere else. Like, do you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, I mean,
because you got to put, like, sometimes artists put hold on certain productions, right?
Man, artists hold tracks all the time. You know the serious artists because they'll be like, yo, let me go ahead and put like a half payment down on this. But most artists, I think, because the producer's role has been minimized so much that they just kind of take us for granted, and they like, yo, just hold this record, and they expect the expectation of you holding that record. You know, they expect that. Yeah. You know, but they never follow up. You know, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. And they expect you to hold that record for that time without any communication. And that's the problem that I have sometimes. And it's like, I only hold records like that for people that I have relationships with. Yeah. You know, and that's where it differs, because we have communication going. It's like, okay, can you hold this record for at least 3 months for me? Because I think this is a potential record that would be on my album. It's like, okay, cool. But, and then at that 3 month, you know, it's either them following up with me or me following up and be like, hey, you're still interested in this record. If not, I'm going to send it this way to this person because I think, you know, they may want this record instead. So it's just a communication thing. And that's where the barrier is broken sometimes, is when that communication is cut off. Yeah. You know.
And do you think that the like, because you were just talking about how producers have been minimized. Do you think that's a result of the tight beat situation? Because we do come from an era where producers were superstars, like, you know, Chad Hugo and fucking and Pharrell and Timbaland, and now we in an era where, like, beyond the person's tag, you might not even know that. Absolutely. Do you think that's a result of the tight beat? Because now you got mainstream artists who literally can go get just a random kid in Connecticut instead of paying a
Yeah,
Timberland.
and that happens a lot. You have YouTube. I've read so many stories of just A&Rs now just go on YouTube to search that. So yeah, that's one of the factors, but you can't really blame just that one
Singularly,
thing.
yeah,
You can't.
it's a combination of things.
It's a combination of things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that makes sense. Now, speaking more on the artist side, we talked a little bit earlier about the Megan Thee Stallion situation. How much information do you have on it? Do you know about all of that, or
I just know just a little bit of what I've heard.
Yeah,
I don't know all the details.
Yeah, so basically, for people who don't know, or just for yourself also, she signed with this production company that ended up partnering with 300 Entertainment later on, and the deal is structured to where the production company gets 60%. She gets 40%, but out of the 40%, she has to pay for the producers, the engineers, the people who worked on her project, and also the label gets 30% of her touring, 30% of her merch. And a lot of, and she went up in arms about all of that and say how she wanted to restructure, and then the label didn't want it, and that's kind of the back and forth they're having now. And it's just odd because, well, it's not odd. I know I get looked at as the politician on this show. But it's just like, I kind of look at situations like that where you get somebody who funds your career, somebody who helps put you in position to get higher up, and now you want to go back on it because, obviously you don't like the deal. I wouldn't like it either, but it got you to where you're at. So I kind of just didn't like how now she's blasting the label and saying, and not wanting to pay them, and just that whole scenario. Kaz feels a little differently to me.
Genius. I do. I think it's kind of, because I view labels almost the way that I view a job. Or a better example, you got LeBron, and then you have whatever NBA team he plays for. LeBron, at the end of the day, no matter how loyal he is to the team, his family, his children, his situation is number one, numero uno. So there's things that we haven't liked historically throughout his career, like we as in the fans and the press. But all of those moves have put his family in a better position. So my thing with Megan Thee Stallion is literally doing what Irv Gotti described Ja Rule as doing, what I'm sure Jay-Z has done.
Yeah.
What you just literally, at a certain point, you
Drake.
sign a piece of paper and it's perfect for you, but then you get that word that I've been using 1,000 years on her, leverage. And once you get leverage in business, you can demand things that you couldn't have.
Yeah.
Like Meg Thee Stallion couldn't have a billion streams earlier. She just got to eat that contract. And honestly, she's fine with it.
Yeah, because she had no leverage back then.
She has no leverage. You got to sign whatever.
And I have no problem with her wanting more now. But I don't like the idea of her blasting the people that helped get her in a position. Like when she was saying shit like, I'm Meg Thee Stallion, I've always been Meg Thee Stallion, even before they came around. If that was the case, she wouldn't have signed that deal. So
they're both trying to control the narrative. Because keep in mind, on his end, he said, as a label, all we did was give. And we know that's not what labels
for sure.
That's never a label's agenda.
Yeah, no.
Hey, I just want to give to this young kid who, that's never been a label's agenda. So they're both fighting for the narrative. Like, to us, we think like this is like mudslinging, and to some degree it is.
For sure.
But the reality is, sometimes in business, I just feel like you have to fight for your family.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know if something happened to Meg Thee Stallion and she wasn't able to produce music. I don't know if this guy, if 1501 is gonna say, no, Meg, that's our friend. Let's take care of Meg. Like, I don't know if that's how it works.
Nah, for sure.
So,
But at the end of the day, too, her saying things like, I didn't know what was in that contract. Like, it's hard for me to feel bad for someone who just doesn't even try to know what the hell is going on before you sign it.
Though. Do you know how many Blueface said this? Lil Yachty said that niggas made fun of Joe Budden.
Yeah,
like, they literally
eating that shit
yelling
now.
Old man.
Yeah, they eating that shit now.
He was literally trying to say, nigga, how do you not know? But it's like we talked about Last Chance U before the mics came on. And I talked about how I want to scream at the TV at these 20, 21-year-olds. All you got to do is do this and you can get a D1 scholarship. But then when I reflect on it at 2021, I didn't even attempt to go to college and had all the potential to do so. So at 20 years old, you would have been bright enough to read legal documents?
No, not at all.
I think at that age, you're just so anxious
to get in
and desperate.
Yep.
You know, and when you're anxious and desperate, like you're gonna make those type of decisions.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's really what it boils down to, is just being in those moments at that time. And then, of course, as you grow and as you mature, your thinking is gonna be different.
Yeah.
And if you're growing, and if you like of course, like Megan, like how she is now, like she's at a different level.
Yeah.
So she is evolving and growing, you know, 5 years later, that contract is still the same from when she was at 20, her 20-year-old thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so it's like trying to find the middle ground of that. But the one thing about businesses is everything is negotiable. So it's just finding that midpoint where both parties are going to be happy and just figuring it out.
And I said earlier, I don't know why labels don't try to make certain things beneficial for the artist, because if the artist is successful, I'm sure you would want to keep them around.
Yeah.
You would want them to stick with you. So why not make it beneficial for them? But I just, in this particular situation, I feel for Megan, but at the same time, she didn't even try to figure out what was going on in the contract and she signed it. And then now trying to go back and be like, I don't want you involved at all. Or, I mean, even if you don't want them involved anymore, that's fine.
She
but don't
said
act
that
like
wasn't even the case.
But don't act like they didn't help get you to a particular position, because you weren't Megan Thee Stallion before 1501 came around. You became Megan Thee Stallion after they became involved and started funding what you were doing.
But
That's all.
if she says that publicly, it fucks up her narrative.
Yeah,
You like when you doing business, sometimes just what you say
for sure.
is a, you know, like her getting on live and having the sniffles and telling people that is, there's a lot of rappers who could have done that same thing and it doesn't work.
No, for sure.
So her narrative works because she's got there were a bunch of chicks who live and die by Megan Thee Stallion at this point. She's a figurehead to a particular, you know, sector of the world. So like when she gets on there and says that, her audience, if you notice, they galvanize. They move to be able to move. If she wouldn't have done that, she wouldn't have even been in position to win in court, release the album that she released. So like I get what
Masterful
you're saying.
rollout also.
You
like,
know,
it
like-
just easily became a rollout for her new project, and it worked like a motherfucker.
And like this.
It worked like a motherfucker. Because I didn't even know she was dropping new music until she did
that-
her
so
live.
She didn't. She damn near didn't. You know, I think we look at it emotionally, and you know that's been one of my biggest things. I always say this about black people in business. We have to understand and like remove some of the emotion from it.
Yeah.
Like I get it when you're doing business with friends, it is a different ball game because them your brothers and you want to do good business by your brothers. But when you get into the outside world, you want to do good business, but you also have to keep in mind that like, yo, I got kids and a mama whose house note I might be paying. And these guys are not concerned with you. And when the moment you stop producing for them,
They're gonna move on to the
they're
next.
gonna move on. The phone call stops.
Yeah,
so
nah.
I'm not mad. That's why I'm not mad at her for it, because I've seen 1,000 guys pull this maneuver in a different way. You know, like I've seen it happen. This industry standard for you to, I'm making hits, I want this. And if you don't give it to me, I'll throw a fit publicly. Shit, Lil Uzi Vert been doing it.
Yeah, nah, for sure. Nah, you're right, man. But I as much as I would like to have more time with it, because we're having a good conversation.
I know.
There's so much more I want to talk about, but we gotta get up out of here, man. Thank you so much for joining us today
Man, I
and giving us
appreciate
your
y'all
time.
having me, man.
For sure.
Hopefully, we made this an enjoyable experience for you.
Absolutely.
Now,
Crazy too. His energy fits like what you expect. You know how some people
for sure.
You exude positive energy because you cool with my brother. Lone Star's like my brother.
Oh, that's my
man.
guy, man.
It's
and J
crazy.
Rose, we rock with J Rose
Yeah,
too.
that's
So
my guy too, man.
So I think it's because I wanted to get into that too, like about how you've allowed other producers to work under you. And,
Change lives, man.
but that just means you have to come back.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, we can definitely make that happen.
But Pray, Focus, Plan, Execute. Where can people get it online? Because I'm gonna tell you guys, like, you know, we don't endorse a lot on here unless we fuck with it. I'm be real with you. Like we get offers all the time, and I'm like, I don't like it. We're not doing that. So, but I really enjoyed the book. Where can people find it and get it online, man?
Yeah, so people can get the physicals right now on my site, Symbolyc1.com. That's SYMBOLYCONE.com. And I have ebooks available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble,
Right.
Apple Books. You can get the ebook. And then my audiobook will be coming out in another few weeks.
Okay.
And I'm excited about that because I narrated it. I had my guy, Ryan Fest, he narrated my about the author.
Oh, nice.
And then I did like I scored like composition with it as well. So you just like do beats and some compositions.
So now I'm gonna have to go. Now I'm gonna have to listen to the motherfucker. Like I just rated. Now I have to listen to the motherfucker, man. Before we get out of here, last thing. What are some things you have coming up besides the book that you're working on?
Excuse me.
Nah, you can.
All right, my bad. All right, so of course the book and just doing a bunch of book promo and book signings, and then just working on different projects. Like I said, I have that new artist Derek Scott that I've been working on.
Right.
I've been working on like some J. Cole records, some Eminem records, and some other records I can't really talk about right now. But yeah, just working, man.
Okay, well then tell Ho we said hi then. That's just naturally what I assume.
Automatically. I did too. I threw up the rock when he said it. I was like this. Some records we can't talk about.
Yeah.
Just trying to stay creative every day.
No, man. Thank you so much for giving us your time, man. And again, make sure you go out and get the book. Stream all of the shit he's produced because there's a lot out there. So you'll have plenty to go through. He actually, I don't know if you know, he actually did one of my favorite records on the More Life project, the Ice Melts.
Ice Melts, yeah.
He did Ice Melts. Know that. Yeah, that's probably like my third favorite track on there because Passion Fruit go hard.
Me and my guy Super Mario.
Yeah.
We got to hit that Justin Bieber. Find your Symbolyc One joint, play it, and go to sleep to it.
All right, man. It's your boy Jay Wil.
Hollywood Kas.
And it's Don't Take It Personal. Peace.
Peace.